Hello, everyone. I'm Mike Sokol from RV Electricity and the No Shock Zone. I've been getting lots and lots of questions lately about electric vehicles used as tow vehicles, specifically for small RV trailers and larger ones. And I've had the good fortune of having a couple of vehicles to experiment with over the summer. So I'm going to do a little section here, and I'm going to call it Towing with EVs, an overview. Are we there yet? So we see a lot of stuff on TV. I'm going to try to eliminate a lot of the questions here so that we can make good decisions. So this discussion, I'm going to talk about the driving range losses while towing using an electric tow vehicle at 55, 60, and 65 miles per hour. The challenges of charging an EV on the road or at the campground. Can an EV safely tow an RV? And can an EV truck be charged on the roadside or in the campground? So we're going to have some fun here. Okay, I have case study number one. Volkswagen actually sent me an ID4, and I had an Alto trailer to experiment with over the summer. So the ID4, the EV, is towing an 1,800-pound Safari Condo Alto teardrop trailer. I had this Volkswagen for 8 weeks beginning in July, and Safari Condo had already provided me with a loaner Alto teardrop trailer. The Alto was outfitted with an additional 400 watts of solar panels to make it equipped for boondocking. Here's the basic specs of the ID4. It's a $40,000 vehicle, probably 50-ish by the time I had mine, my loaner. They say 240 to 260 miles. Charging time, they say 7.5 hours at 220 volts, level 2 charger. Towing capacity, rear wheel drive was rated for 2,200 pounds and 2,800 pounds for the all-wheel drive. I had the rear wheel drive version. You can see I'm hooked up to a little Safari Condo Alto. Now, even though this is a pretty small trailer, pretty light actually, but really close to the limits of what this little Volkswagen wants to do, but I felt perfectly safe. The range did drop significantly when towing this teardrop trailer. And I remember this is an all-electric vehicle, tow vehicle. So here's what I did with the nominal range at 70 miles per hour. I calculated out being, in fact, I had driven it around a good bit, right around 275 miles. But when I was towing the Safari Condo trailer at 65 miles an hour, I had a 60% loss in mileage, 110 miles available instead of 275 miles. At 60 miles an hour, it wasn't quite so big. It was a 52% loss, and I had 132 miles available. And at 55 miles per hour, I was only getting a 42% loss, so I was down to 160 miles available. And that's pretty significant, but I think we can extrapolate this across the industry. Without the trailer, my range was 250 plus miles on a level highway, driving 70 miles per hour average. And again, when you're towing at 65 miles per hour, which we want to do here on the East Coast, not in California, the range dropped to 110 miles. If you're at 55 miles an hour, California speeds, you have a 160-mile range. You could, in fact, tow this to local area campgrounds, but it's not going to be something you're going to want to take across the country yet. Case study number two, I also borrowed an extreme MyPod trailer and did a day-long test. I drove a 30-mile highway loop that was very level. And again, I did this at speeds of 55, 60, and 65 miles per hour during the test. And at 55 miles per hour, there was only a 25% loss in driving range. This is the little trailer right here. It's not much taller or wider than the Volkswagen ID4, only weighs 800 pounds and has much less wind drag. So you can see that this starts to become a possibility. So I think for towing trailers with an electric tow vehicle, it's not so much about the weight as it is the wind. It's all about wind resistance, at least my discovery. So you can see doing the extreme pod trailer, I had at 55 miles per hour, I had 206 miles of range. Again, not fantastic compared to a gas vehicle, but not bad, not bad. If we were doing 65 miles per hour here on the East Coast, we would lose about 33% of our range, down to 182 miles. And again, these same numbers I think you could pretty much use. I don't care if you have a Ford Lightning or a Rivian or whatever. This is all about the size of the trailer and how much wind resistance it has. Okay, again, without a trailer, the ID4 driving range is 250 plus miles at 70 miles per hour. I might zip all over the place. But once I stick an iPod, or excuse me, a MyPod trailer, sorry, the range dropped by just by 25%. But the performance was really quite good, remarkable, really, for an electric vehicle. You put your foot in this thing, and it feels like you got a big engine making you go. One thing that's really interesting, I did a couple of hills around here. I have a 11-mile grade very close to my house that's 6%, one of the longest continuous grades in the country, out in Western Maryland. And what I found was I watched the miles per kilowatt hour, and that's how we actually judge these things instead of miles per gallon, drop from about 1.6 down to about 0.8 miles per kilowatt hour, going up a 6% grade. However, when I started coasting down the grade, I was able to turn on the regenerative braking, and my rough calculations said that I was recovering about 80% of that lost energy I used to climb that hill. So this is an interesting aspect of electric tow vehicles, because you kind of have a built-in exhaust brake. But instead of exhaust, it's electrons that you're dumping back into the battery. And, this can actually help if you're doing a lot of going uphill and downhills. Even though you may lose a significant amount of range as you're climbing a hill, as you're coming back down, you can actually watch the charge going back into the battery. It's really cool. Now, a couple of things. If anybody that's been using any sort of electric vehicle knows, when you want to go to a high-speed charging station, there's not a lot of room around these things. So I visited perhaps a dozen different charging centers over a month and a half period looking around. I could not find a single one that had room that would allow me to charge an EV pulling a trailer, not even the smallest trailer. So you basically had to go over to the side of the parking lot, dump the trailer off, go charge up for 45 minutes or an hour, and then go hitch your trailer back up and get towing again. And that's just unacceptable. I've talked to a number of the manufacturers about this. And many times there's huge amounts of room around these things. It would be pretty easy to set up a lane that will allow you to leave your trailer attached. I think that's super important. Okay, how fast are the so-called fast chargers? The level 3 are the big ones that you see in the parking lots, and they will only charge the battery on your electric vehicle as fast as the battery will allow. They come in 50 kilowatt, 150 kilowatt, 350 kilowatt. I've been looking at stuff. Some of them are up to a megawatt charging rates. But I'm thinking most of the time 50 to 150 are going to be really common. So if you had a 100 kilowatt hour battery, in your EV. I think my Volkswagen had 70 or 75. But with 100, like you'd have in a truck, a 50 kilowatt charger would take around 2 hours to charge. 150 would take about 40 minutes. And if you had a 350 kilowatt charger, if the battery would accept it, you could charge that in 20 minutes or so. So, people are worried about charging rates. Now, here's another interesting thing. What about when you run out of charge on the road? The first question I got, and I started calling around, can you get a fast booster charge from AAA, Tesla, Volkswagen, anybody else? If I made a call into AAA, they would just want to send a tow vehicle, at least here on the East Coast. I know a few guys are experimenting with this, but we're not there yet. So only Tesla seems to have some sort of a recovery system where they can bring out a fast charger on the back of a truck. How can you charge your EV, your electric vehicle, if the local power grid goes down? Two aspects. So Tesla actually has backup diesel charging stations if the grid goes down in an area. So they start up just like you would have at a hospital or a large business. Basically, a big diesel generator starts up to allow to get enough electricity. That's one way to do it. We don't like to do that all the time because that's kind of an expensive way to do it. But if you need it, you need it. I was able to charge the Volkswagen ID4. I also had a loaner F-150 hybrid, what they call the Power Boost, and it had a 7.2 kilowatt generator and a level 2 charger. So you can, in fact, use a level 2 charger from your F-150 hybrid truck with the engine idling to charge your all-electric vehicle, your EV. Kind of neat, I thought. Now, is roadside charging possible? Let's say you misjudge and now you're stuck by the side of the road. You normally would call AAA. They would go ahead and bring you, a wrecker would come out and he would bring you a gallon of gas and dump in there, and you'd have 20 or 30 miles range and you could go drive to the gas station and fill up, all as well. Right now, that's kind of tricky to do in an electric vehicle, whether it's a truck or a sedan or whatever. So I did a few little studies and a few experiments here. So a level 1 charger, which is the simplest one they give you, with a 2,000 watt generator. Let's say you had a Honda 2,000 watt generator with you. That would give you about 5 miles of range in an hour of running. That's it. So not really acceptable. So if you had a level 2 charger, let's say you had a 10 kilowatt generator in the back of your vehicle, which you probably are not going to have, but you could add 30 miles of range in an hour of charging. It's still not fabulous. If somebody brought out a portable level 3 charger on the back of a truck, and again, very rare, they can recharge you at a rate of 250 miles in an hour. So basically, if they sat on there for, 10 minutes or so, they put, 50 miles on it. Or there are possibilities of portable battery packs that could give you 2 or 3 miles of range. So for instance, if I had a Jackery 1500, I could get a couple, 3 miles of range in 1 or 2 hours. And all of these are kind of goofy setups, but things that I had available to experiment with. I've been looking at a product now from a company called Spark Charge. And this would be for like a AAA dealership, I should say, or a road recovery system. So these guys at Spark Charge make something that's called the Roadie. And you can see this is a series of batteries here. Each battery is like 3.5 kilowatt hour battery pack, and each one will give you about 15 miles of range in 15 minutes of charging. So I could see a recovery truck with a few of these battery packs on there, and then basically they would come plug into your EV, whatever it is, and in 15 minutes give you around 15 miles. And again, they're not trying to fill this whole thing up. It's like dumping a gallon of gas in your regular internal combustion car. They just want to get you to a charging station so they don't have to go ahead and tow you. I don't have a price range on these yet, but I'm doing a couple of experiments where I would love to try, assembling some of those in the back of a F-150 hybrid with the 7.2 kilowatt generator. I'll talk about that in a second. These would work with any CCS compatible EV, electric vehicle, and you could charge in a Tesla. You could charge a Tesla with an adapter. So it just is a matter of getting the right pieces together here. Fast charging stations. I was able to recharge my ID4 from 10% to 90% in under 45 minutes. They really don't like you to take these to 100% at full rate because it's hard on the batteries. But it was about a 45-minute to go from 10% to 90%. I did this a good many times. Again, none of the charging stations that I visited could accommodate an electric vehicle towing a trailer of any size. I had to unhitch the trailer and park it in a lot, which was really goofy. I would not want to do that more than for a demonstration. And basically, this makes fast charging with an electric vehicle and a trailer as impractical right at this moment. You should be able to charge from Campground. So you can get a level 2 charger that'll charge at 40 amps on 240 volts. I've got one from Mustart. And it uses a regular NEMA 1450, which is a regular RV 50 amp 240 volt plug. And they will charge up to 40 amps at 240 volts. So a 100 kilowatt hour truck battery, let's say in a Lightning, Ford Lightning or whatever, could charge in around 10 hours overnight, but it would take up all of your 50 amp service coming in to do that for 10 hours. And I mean all of it. The big question is, will campgrounds allow this? I've been talking to a number of campground groups and associations, and some of them say they're going to charge a flat rate. Others say not at all. Not quite there yet. Some campgrounds are now installing level 3 chargers near the entrance where they can actually monetize this a little bit. You pull in, drop off your trailer or whatever, take your truck over to the entrance and sit there for 40 minutes or whatever, charging it. However, I feel that new electrical code must be written to increase the available power at campgrounds. That is, they're going to have to start requiring a certain number of charging stations for a given number of spots so that as EVs come in, they will have a place to charge. And again, one of the real issues with just plugging in is many campground electrical systems are already overloaded electrically due to air conditioning and other RV electricity demands. So we just don't have all the juice to do this. What about an EV-powered trailer? Woo! Now, this is really cool stuff. I've been dreaming about this for the last year or two, and I've seen a few things. So Thor has just announced that they're going to soon be building trailers with a ZF e-trailer system to extend the EV range. Now, I'm not sure that's in that little Bambi Airstream, but if it was, it would be really cool. So basically what they do is they put a large battery pack in the trailer down below the frame to keep it low. They put motor generators in the wheels, and then the trailer pushes itself down the road. So as you're driving your vehicle does not have to provide any towing energy. You're steering and braking and such. And those are not just motors in the wheels, those become generators. So again, when you're going down a big hill, you can engage the downhill braking system on it, the regenerative braking, and it'll start recovering that lost energy that you used to climb the hill, and it'll go ahead and put it back into the battery pack in there. And this is pretty darn interesting. And as a side note on that, that battery would have to be big enough that it could run the air conditioner in your trailer for a day or more just on the battery packs. So again, not a bad thing. You guys are all asking about boondocking and using an air conditioner. This is how you would do it, I think. So what about hybrid truck towing? So hybrids haven't got a lot of attention, but they're pretty darn cool. So I have a Rockwood GeoPro, a G19 FBTH trailer. I've towed one to Indiana and back to Maryland, and Nashville and back to Maryland, using a Ford F-150 Power Boost. And it really performed well. Plus, while I was at the Airstream convention, I was able to power 30 and 50 amp trailers from the built-in 7.2 kilowatt generator, the inverter generator that's in the truck. It just idles and turns on and runs it all day. This is a pretty sweet deal, I think, especially as an interim step until there's sufficient number of electric charging stations out there. Okay, towing with an F-150 Power Boost. Is the Ford Power Boost a plug-in hybrid? No, it is not. It recharges. It has basically only a 1.5 kilowatt hour traction battery under the seat, and it recharges that from the gasoline engine. The range with both gas and battery, if you're just driving around on a 30-gallon tank, it's got like a 600-mile range. It's pretty good. I mean, I zipped all over the place without a trailer, and that's zipping around at 70 miles per hour as I am wont to do. I'm on the East Coast with all kinds of interstates here. Now, you can run under battery power in town, but it's not really meant for this on the highway. It only has a few miles range around town, because remember, this is a 1.5 kilowatt hour, not the 75 or 100, 125 kilowatt hours that you would have. But when you're in combi mode, where it does both the electric and the V6 turbocharged on there, when you put your foot in this thing, the torque of the internal combustion engine and the traction engine come together, and it feels like you got a big V8 in this thing. I mean, this thing's a rocket. Now, your mileage, of course, drops, so there's no such thing as a free lunch. So again, that F-150 dropped from 23 miles per gallon without a trailer down to 13.5 miles per gallon on the flat highway, and at 55, and down to about 10.5 miles per gallon at 65 miles per hour. And we all experience this kind of thing, when we put a big trailer behind us with a lot of wind resistance. It will, in fact, require a lot more pulling. So we're used to losing half of our gasoline mileage, in many cases when we're towing a reasonable sized trailer. Again, it's not so much the weight, it's really the wind resistance. But that knocks your range down considerably when you're on an electric vehicle that might only have a 300-mile range to start and takes a long time to recharge. So, but one of the interesting things, because you have this built-in inverter generator in this thing, I was able to do a couple of tricks. So for instance, I connected, I've got a 10 kilowatt load bank that I use for my lab. I was able to mount that in the back of the truck, use a special an outlet connector to break it out to test the 7.2 kilowatt generator at 7,000 watts. And I found if you had the proper breakaway adapters, you could power the air conditioner in the trailer while you're towing down the road. I was driving all over the place, towing a trailer, dumping 7,000 watts into this basically space heater in the back of the truck. So there's a lot of stuff that you could do with it. Plus, when you want to do boondocking, or if you would like to go and go to a football game where they're doing stuff, out in the parking lot, you could in fact do that with for all day and night, days with the engine idling. It's pretty neat. It just turns the motor on and off, the gas engine on and off as it needs it for the inverter. So you can, in fact, power your house from this truck with a 7.2 kilowatt inverter generator. It makes 240 volts. You would need to have the proper generator interlock or transfer switch, depending on your local electrical codes in your house. And in fact, I was able to demonstrate you can run the Pro Power generator in it. That's what they call. While driving to power your RV trailer, I did that. I drove around for 2 hours at 7,000 watts. I am not sure. Somebody hinted that your power may be reduced in high temps, but I was driving around in 90-degree weather and I didn't see anything drop out. Who knows? I just have more testing to do. Now, everyone wants to know how long would that run in with the gas tank that you've got in there. So according to Ford, it's rated for 32 hours of idle time, of running at idle, making 7.2 kilowatts of power. Or if you're doing it intermittently, or you just need 2.4 kilowatts, which is more of an average, it'll run 85 hours. So you get this. This is like 2, 3, 4 days worth of running of this thing idling and keeping this inverter generator running, which would then allow you to power a pair of 30 amp shore power RVs if you want to go tailgating or you want to go out in the woods. Yeah. And one of the questions I had, can you secure your truck while it's idling? Because, the last thing you want to do is have your truck out there idling in the middle of the night and someone says, yeah, that's a nice truck, I'm going to take it. If you take your key fob, the engine, you can lock the doors and you can go inside and the engine will keep running and doing the generator thing, all the while. And if somebody does get in there without the fob, it'll shut it down immediately. So they've taken that into consideration. I think it's well engineered. I do. Okay, we've come to the end of this basic program here. So let's try to answer a couple of questions here. And, and as we move forward, there'll be even more things later as I learn more. Is the electric motor technology up to RV and trailer towing requirements? Well, I got to tell you, I am terribly, terribly impressed with how well this stuff works. I mean, the motors work great. The speed control works great. The dynamic braking works great. These things just blast around like little rockets. The ID4 is really especially cool because it sounds kind of like a George Jetson spaceship landing when you come in. It just got this little... I like it. I'm sorry. I'm a Trekkie. Is there a way to reduce the drop in driving range while towing a trailer? And I think part of the hope of that is, first off, if you made the trailer slipperier, it would be better. Up to this point, manufacturers never really worried about the aerodynamics. There are a number of trailers that are being designed with aerodynamics in mind, which I think would be pretty darn cool. The biggest hope would be, of course, if they design trailers that have got built-in motor generators, sets in the wheels, and 75 or so kilowatt hours of battery storage down, tucked between the frame. But that is a separate thing that you've got to charge up. But that could, in fact, they said they're hinting that it may boost the range of an electric vehicle. So maybe it might, without a trailer, get 250 miles. With the trailer, maybe it gets 300 miles range. I don't know. But I would just like it if it didn't reduce it by half. It would be much better. How quickly will battery technology improve to where range isn't an issue? I've been studying up on lithium batteries and how they're advancing in the marketplace. And, the thing that's really, really interesting, they're predicting by the end of this decade, by 2030, wow, it's hard to say 2030, that lithium batteries will be at 1/3 the price and 3 times the energy density. So what that hints at is, in the same packaging size that you would have in your vehicle, instead of a 250 or 300 mile range, you could possibly get something on the order of 750 to 900 mile range. And the price could reduce to the point where it's cheaper than a gasoline engine. Get where I'm going with this? I don't think we have to legislate this to happen. I think if they get smart enough and make these cheap enough and let the range go up high enough, people are just going to buy them. You're just going to, like flat screen TVs. Nobody had to make you buy a flat screen TV. They just became cheaper, better, quicker, all of the above. And the big final question is, can charging station issues be solved? I think that more people don't realize that, you can easily put level 2 chargers in your own home. One of the things I would like to experiment with this summer would be to put enough solar panels up on my garage so that I could just charge up an EV most all of the time. And in fact, the Ford Lightning, F-150 Lightning, has an intelligent charger that automatically uses the battery charge that you have in your Lightning truck to be able to power your house if the grid goes down. So they're bi-directional chargers they're coming out for this, for home stuff. You're not going to get any super fast chargers at home anytime soon. I think that that's kind of really not necessary. I mean, right now you can charge overnight in 10 hours. One of the things that is interesting, I didn't want to slide in about, is the fact that you can, or should be able to, before long, do a contactless charger where you basically just drive in over top of a plate that's maybe 10 inches below your engine clearance. And they will charge up to 10 or 11 kilowatts at, I think they said 95% efficiency. It's just kind of like you take your smartphone and just dump it on a wireless charging platform. We're getting there. I mean, all these things are all coming together. A lot of people are afraid of electric technology. I got to admit, I've played around with this stuff over the last 20 or 30 years with some friends of mine that had built their own EVs and experimented with it. And that was kind of bleeding edge technology. But now stuff's becoming mainstream. And with all of the stuff we've learned in terms of battery usage for smartphones and computers and all the other things, I think we're gonna get there. Now, it's not gonna be next year. I'm saying this is probably a 10-year cycle for this to happen, and at that point, somewhere in the middle of all of this, well, the Lightning is a little bit behind schedule right now, so they're going to have some units out this year coming up in 2022. I've been promised a Rivian pickup truck here. Once one is available, who knows? I'm asking for another F-150 Power Boost loaner so that I can do some more experiments with towing this summer and powering EVs and such. And there are a few other manufacturers. I've been in contact with GM about providing an electric version of their Hummer, which would be interesting. I've even pinged Tesla for a Cybertruck. If I can get them, I'm going to run them. It'll be super interesting and neat. So lots of fun. Okay. That's my presentation for today. I've got some links down underneath where you can go find out more or start some more questions, which I'll try to answer. Well, this has been Mike Sokol from RV Electricity and the No Shock Zone, and for my Go Green RV program here. Have a great day, and we're going to keep our eyes out on electric vehicles for towing and for trailers. Thank you so much for your time.